that he gave him. God gives his crosses very carefully. The biggest ones he gives to those he loves the most. And if the size of your cross proves the love of God, then Martin, my dear friend, all of us are impressed with how much God's heart loved yours. Every day, in fact, in our country, there is roughly 2,150 people who die every day in our country from heart failure, heart disease. It is estimated that 40 people every second die from the heart failure. Imagine that. Just in this sermon, I was going to say a short sermon, but just in this sermon, how many people, souls, will pass before the judgment seat of God? And Martin, you had your moment. Martin, you had your second. It was so quick in our eyes. But for God, he waited for that second for all of eternity. The world would look at that second in despair. We Catholics, we look at that second in hope. The world would account that second as a curse from God. We Catholics smile. And we see it as a true blessing of God. It was about this time when Martin was in the hospital that I had the privilege of entering his life. I was brought there by his good Aunt Min and his Uncle Joe. At the hospital that day, I remember meeting many of you family members. You were there, tears in your eyes, yet you had hope. Hope that maybe Martin would limp along through life, perhaps through medicine, modern technology. The doctors, with their fancy instruments, could figure a way. We had hope. I remember that first meeting very well as I stood over his hospital bed. This big man with that tattoo of St. Michael the Archangel on his arm. I introduced myself and said, Martin, my name is Father Mackin. I said, I'm here. I hope you're ready to make your peace with God. I said, your aunt, your uncle out there, you would certainly make their day. He said, Father, I'm ready. But then he said something that really surprised me. Something that I will always remember. He said, bring my family in the room. I want to confess with them in the room. I've never heard that in all my years of being a priest. I encouraged him first to make the private confession. The priest can ask the right questions and precise. I said, Martin, after that, if you want to speak to your family, feel free. But I was surprised. And he did just that. With some family members in the room, he made his peace with God and with them. I remember going home being very impressed that night. A few days later, Uncle Joe brought me back to visit Martin. And he told me excitedly in the hospital, Father, I had a dream. I had a dream, Father. It was scary at the same time. It was awesome. I said, Martin, what was your dream? I had left him that night a relic of the true cross, which he held tightly in his hand during the night, he said. He said, it was after the confession I went to bed that night. Martin was scared of the nighttime. Who isn't, right? What boy is not scared of the night? Think back to those prison nights. Think back to those nights in Vietnam. So here was another night Martin was scared of. But he said during the night when he fell asleep, he had this dream. He said, Father, I was surrounded by demons in this dream. I asked him permission, by the way, to tell this dream. He said yes. I've told it on several boys' camps, too. Well, one boys' camp. And I've told it to several of the students here. But Martin, in this dream, was surrounded by demons, and they were mocking him. They were laughing at him, saying, oh, now you want to be holy. Now you want to live the good life. You can't. You're too weak. And they started mocking. He said, Blessed Mother and our Lord. And Martin said, I was so scared. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't run. I was forced to listen to it. But then I woke up. I was in sweat. He said, I was very scared. It was early in the morning in the hospital, all alone. But then he said, I remembered, Father. I remembered you told me I was in the state of grace. I remembered you told me that I had now in my soul the most blessed Trinity by grace. I remembered, Father, you gave me the relic of the true cross. So I said to myself, I'm going back to sleep. And if I see those demons, he said, I'm going to raise hell. He did just that. He said he fell asleep, and sure enough, a few moments later, he was back in the same dream. There they were mocking him. He said, Father, this time I was different, and so I chased them. He said, I ran after them so fast, and he said they fled. They ran away like little girls. I laughed, so did Joe. At that point in time, we nicknamed Martin the Dragon Slayer, after the great Saint Michael, who makes of the demons like a little fool. But it takes faith. There was maybe 3 lessons I can share with you real quick from that hospital visit. Number 1, the lesson to bring the priest. My dear friends, so many people today, they're left to die alone. So many people today are left to be in their pains without cause, without hope. But Uncle Joe and Aunt Min, they brought the priest, which is the great example. Bring them the priest so he can confess them, so he can give them hope. That is from God, the first lesson. The second lesson is that what should we do with our sufferings? They're going to come. Should we not offer them up for past mistakes? Martin did just that. He offered up all those sufferings for his life of mistakes, he said. And the third lesson that we learn, don't ever lose hope. Don't ever lose hope in the mercy of God. Just like Dismas hanging on the cross, the good thief, or Mary Magdalene, the penitent sinner. Don't ever give up on a soul. Don't ever. From this point on, Martin's life, the last few months, will be totally different. You might call it the conversion. It was on August the 22nd, the feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, that those in our community and some of your family members and Martin, we prayed a 54-day rosary novena. We said, Martin, we're praying for a miracle. We're praying for a miracle that your heart improve. And we know no better place to turn than the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The novena ended on October the 14th, the day before, the 13th, was a Saturday. About 150 people from our parish here went on a pilgrimage, a 15-mile walking pilgrimage to Carmel. And we carried the statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Martin came along. He couldn't do the walk, of course, but he rode in the bus. And for him to even come that day, it was so hard. When Father Asher celebrated Mass at the lunch spot, we rented a conference room at a hotel, and Martin climbed the flights of stairs to get to the top. During the Mass, his father was celebrating, and I was kneeling in the back, and there was the choir singing away, and there were the altar boys. You heard the bells ringing, but I also heard Martin gasping for air. The whole Mass, he was suffering. The only one in the room. Yes, it's an amazing thought that God will bless us with his crosses, that he will allow us to share in his Calvary. During one of the late nights that Martin couldn't sleep, he sent me a text message. Father, I'm scared once again of the night. He knew his condition was getting worse. What to do? Of course, I tried to give him hope. Bless the Mother and the angels are there. And so I asked him, I said, Martin, trying to get his mind off of it. Martin, I'm sending the message, it's close to midnight. Martin, what is your favorite hobby? What do you like doing for fun? He said, Father, I used to love fishing. I have a boat, he said, down in Delta. He said, I would go there to find a lot of peace and quiet. That was my favorite hobby, Father. But he said, since I've been home from the hospital, the only thing that I want to do now is to go to church. I said, Martin, you can barely walk. you can't make it to Mass